You're allowed.
Okay, Brian Connor. We're on 6.1, corporate strategic management vendor licensing.
Yeah, so good morning, Council. And if you hear any additional heckling more than usual from this side, it's because my son is over here. So I think he was hoping that I'd be done before everything was done, so that he can get
We can pick the one.
Yeah, it's a little obvious. Yeah.
Just guarantee we're going to give you a hard time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm ready for it. So we're good. All right, so what we're looking to do now this morning is just to have a discussion to provide some direction to staff to identify targeted outcomes from the development of an updated vendor licensing bylaw. So specifically related to the Chester Village planning area. So I'm going to try not to repeat what you have in front of you from the document. However, if any of you looked at your OneDrive before Monday, it might be a different document. So please, if you're looking through and there's any confusion, please make sure you ask questions because of the fact that we did update it on Monday or Tuesday this week. So just
So that's what we have in paper copy.
So paper copy is in front of you for that reason. So I just wanted to make sure that there was no confusion there.
I got two paper copies. Have they changed?
Yes.
Oh, no.
We should have a little one like this.
I had all my questions written out here.
Oh, well, that's good. You can they'll still be relevant.
Well,
it's just we have some extra information in the new document, so it'll hopefully be helpful. Okay. So ask any questions. Like I said, I'm just going to give a very brief overview to set everything up. But essentially, what we're trying to walk through is the fact that we have a current bylaw that is, we'll say, doing a less than ideal job, both in regulating things that maybe we don't want to be occurring in the village area, and it's also not encouraging the things that we might want to happen in the village area. So we're looking at ways to update the bylaw to deal with both of those things. So currently, just to kind of give a very brief overview, currently vending is technically permitted in any location within the village and municipality because the bylaw is silent to anything to do with where vending can take place. So we do, though, have a longstanding practice of only permitting vending within the village boundaries in commercial zones. So that is a standing practice. The bylaw itself, though, does not specifically refer to location itself and doesn't even refer to the land use bylaw itself. So it's not explicitly referenced in the bylaw. So this definitely shows the need that we need for us to update and or replace the bylaw. But before we get into that drafting process and engaging with our community partners, we're looking to have a discussion and receive direction to better understand what council's priorities are around this. So in the new document, and this is why we wanted to make sure you had the new document in front of you, we're recommending a number of recommendations which can be found on page 5? Yeah, basically on page 5, I think, or around there. And what we're trying to do is avoid developing a bylaw that takes a one-size-fits-all approach because that could result in unintended consequences that accidentally prohibit activities that we might want to encourage. And that means that there are a lot of things to consider, which is why that's outlined there for you in the document. But I wanted to highlight a few key themes where we specifically are looking for direction. So there's a lot of things there for you to consider in the document, but there are two key areas I wanted to bring to the front of the conversation. And the first key area is what I'm referring to as programming, which is specifically an answer to the question, what are we looking to have happen when it comes to vending? So these are the three key questions that are asked on the third page of the document. So essentially it is, what are we trying to incentivize? What are we trying to regulate? And what are we trying to eliminate? So essentially, if we look at that in a little bit of a different way, what we want to know is, what does a so-called bad actor look like? So what are we trying to remove from happening within the village boundaries? What will we want to develop conditions around in order to eliminate that activity? At the same time, you'll notice we have a few different things in there as well to talk about the fact that vending can have an incredibly positive impact on public spaces, and so when it's done the right way and in the right location. So we've outlined a few of those important things that we have looked into as we've been both doing a jurisdictional scan, but also looking at other areas around around the world as they're trying to develop their public spaces. And the fact that vending can really provide for vibrant public spaces as one example, so it can really add to activity that is happening in key areas of your community to get people to stay in those places longer, what we refer to as stickiness. It also can be an on-ramp for entrepreneurship, so it lowers the barrier of entry for people to be able to really start out with their business because of the fact that there's not as much cost and overhead costs involved with that. And it's also a quicker way to provide a platform for equity-seeking groups that they might not be participating in the economy as readily or quickly. So it can provide that opportunity for people. So we want to look at that and say, is this something that we're looking to encourage? And if so, what does it look like? The second P that we're looking at when it comes to trying to have this discussion is around place. So we started with programming, we're also looking at place. So what we want to know is where this activity should be happening within specifically the village planning area, but you'll see we have a few additional questions here as well. So one option is to continue the approach that we have been taking, which is the practice that we had of allowing this in commercial zones only. And that we would need to simply make it a little bit more clear because, like as I said, the bylaw right now does not make that explicit. It just simply references, it doesn't even reference it, but we have done that in practice. So one simple approach would be, let's just make that clear, that this is permitted in commercial zoning or any zone that allows for that activity under the land use bylaw. For private property, that might, for example, really make sense. But for public and municipal property, it might be preferred to take a different approach that really looks a little bit more distinctly at where we should be allowing this or permitting within the village. So for example, council could instruct staff to target specific open areas where vending would be beneficial and encourage vending in those locations. So for example, as you'll see in the document, we're talking about things like Parade Square or the waterfront area or Lordley Park, areas where you want people to be staying longer, and it would be great to have different businesses be able to operate in those areas. This also includes the conversation of on-street vending, and because of the fact that I know that's been a question that people have had, but that can be, again, only permitted in one of those open zones, because you would, I shouldn't say it this way, you would want to consider things like obstruction in some of the key areas, but then there might be areas where you wouldn't want to eliminate the activity entirely, because, for example, Parade Square technically is a public street, and you might wish to be able to close that down for special events or for specific time periods. Same thing when it comes to the Tancook Ferry eventually moving. That Water Street might become an opportunity to actually use on-street vending. So you want to consider that is what we're trying to talk about. We'd like your direction on that. And the final thing, well, it's not the final thing, but the final thing we mentioned here with regards to place is the direction that we have received to date focuses entirely on the Chester planning area itself, the Chester Village planning area, sorry. And council could provide direction to just focus on that and update a bylaw that only refers to the planning area within the village itself. Or at a minimum, you could suggest that we maybe revise the bylaw to at least make explicit some of the things that we've just talked about for the municipal wide. So where a zone allows it, that it's allowed outside of the village area. We're leaving that open for your input as well. We want to understand, do you want to just focus on the village planning area, or would you like to revise the bylaw so at least we mention the things that we've just discussed today as it relates to the municipality as a whole as well. Part of the benefit of that as well, in addition to being able to clean it up and make it more clear, so rather than running in practice as opposed to our bylaw policy itself, it would also allow us to move reference to things like fees from the bylaw, because if we had two separate bylaws governing, we would have fees determined for one within a bylaw for the municipality, whereas the other one would be defined outside with regards to the village planning area itself. So, I'll stop talking now, but basically our proposed process for next steps is once we receive the direction from today, we're proposing to take all your feedback from this conversation today to develop a draft bylaw to then go out and engage. So it's a bit different than what we sometimes would do, which is to engage first and then develop the bylaw. We're suggesting, because of the nature of this licensing, we would like to have something for people to react to. So to take them some suggested changes, see what their input is, and then come back to council with any changes that are recommended by the business community, by our key partners that are around the community, and then come back to council with the changes and a draft bylaw for first reading at that point in time. Thank you very much. So
Just maybe you could just, I mean, I don't question that it needs to be updated because it's unclear and all that kind of stuff, doesn't say much, but what real issues are we having specific to the village? Because I'm not, about my own district, I'm not aware of any issues within, but, yeah.
And for that, I would like to defer to the comments that have come around the table. I know that there has been some issues raised with obstruction as one example,
Yeah,
and traffic control. So that's one of the things that we have definitely heard. And on top of that, from a economic development standpoint, you might sense the tone when I respond to this is we also want to use this as a way to encourage things in certain areas that maybe there's not enough vibrancy in certain areas that we could actually use it to generate something.
Any more questions, comments?
Can I just add to that as
Or-
well? So our current bylaw applies to the whole municipality.
Yeah.
So in the entire municipality, you're allowed to do vendor or vending, and you're required to get a license to do that.
Yeah.
So the first question we would have is, do we want to continue that? I don't sense that there's an issue with allowing vending anywhere in the municipality. We require a license for that now. Do we want that license to continue to apply, and do you want some sort of standards that would apply outside of the village so that, you know, you can only do it for a certain amount of time or anything like that? Or do you just want to not regulate it outside of the village and the rest of the
I
municipality?
think the village is a separate animal.
Question one, and then the village, you're right, has its own challenges. So right now, I think the way it's written, vending could technically be allowed anywhere. The way we've been practicing it is we limit it to commercial areas so that it doesn't set up a conflict with our land use bylaw. That said, there are some areas, and I think Parade Square might be one of them, that technically doesn't allow commercial, but we allow vending there. So we need to clean those types of issues up. So we just want to look for a little bit of direction on where, you know, what controls do we want to have in place? Do we want it inside or outside the municipality? Some base level of standards outside of the village. And then what do we want to do in the village? Do you want to allow it in public spaces? Do you want to allow it for a certain amount of time? Do you want to allow it in road right-of-ways? We've had vendors that have parked along Pleasant Street. We don't have control over the street there. But do we want to allow it in those areas, provided they have permission from transportation? So those are the types of questions we need to have discussion around.
Well, I just think a time frame of how long the license is good for. I'll just use an example, like I know in the Harvard area, that a fishing ship is set up over the summer. Other businesses struggle to keep the place alive for the summer business, and there's some conflict if they were there for a whole summer versus, you know, it's a special event. License or that type of thing. I think that's a factor into it, so I would look at that part of it. I know they're probably allowed to do it. Right now, the issue in Harvard is it's got to be HRM, and it's not really in Chester, so there's no control over that. But I know that some of the local restaurants really had a big issue with it.
And that is one of the big issues, is what I'm seeing is unfair competition.
Yeah.
And that, do they pay a fee for the license?
Not much.
So they come in at prime time, don't pay a cent, and then compete with businesses that are trying to struggle all year round. I see a problem with that. And I think the engagement with those businesses is a critical piece of this. You know, maybe they're happy with it, but they're not happy when they got a vendor parked right in front of their door and their customers can't get to their shop. That's a major issue. So place is important, of course, but also if, you know, what I was interested in what you said about the benefits. I didn't see it, I don't see a lot of those benefits, or I didn't, and it gave me pause to think about, okay, maybe there is a role, but in the right spot at the right time. I know the Legion, I think at your dance the other night, they didn't have food facilities, but they had something outside, food truck outside. You know, maybe that's a good idea. You know, I hadn't thought of it that way. The time they did it was sort of after regular business hours. It was, and it was providing a service that the Legion obviously couldn't provide, or it wasn't worth their while. Then they got a truck to come. I see that as perhaps a good use. Did they pay a fee to the Legion for that? You know how that works?
That I don't know.
They just paid your performance fee and that's all.
That's all I was working for. No,
That place was rocking when I drove by, man.
he goes everywhere, this food truck. He's all over the place. He sets up at the old Gold River School.
Yeah.
He's been everywhere. So in Mahone Bay, and I'm not sure what they do in Mahone Bay. I'm sure they have, well, he's in Blockhouse actually. So I would expect he pays he has a vendor's permit, I would
So it
assume.
doesn't cost them anything. It's a pretty good gig when you can have your business and have paid no.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Somehow they set up at the Petrocan in Chester Basin.
Yes, he does.
But the Petrocan lets them do it.
Yeah, and so and I think it's up to the individual venue. Like the Legion, he just can't go unless he has permission. So I don't know how that would work. Yeah, you're right, you need it. Yeah.
Tina?
Similar to Alan's comment, I haven't heard from my community in terms of negative comments from obviously bricks and mortar, probably for the most part. I've heard positive comments around the food trucks that have come in for the first time during some of our festivals and events, specifically. So far, they have not just come willy-nilly in there or anything. I appreciate, though, Brian, your comments around the vibrant public spaces placemaking. And I think you're drawing on a bit of your background there with Build Nova Scotia, and I really appreciate that. So I pay particular attention to the statement, encouraging mobile vending in these locations should be considered to increase the vibrancy and stickiness of these places. So when I think of placemaking and developing those particular areas that make sense of those communities, like when I talk about New Ross, and I think of the downtown or the cross area. So part of my discussion, if I am having discussions with some of those businesses, would be just that. The fact that more brings more. I actually believe that more brings more. So, yeah.
Is it okay if I just if I just chime in, because I want to make sure I'm responding both to what Councillor Connors and Councillor Wells said. So a couple things on that is the fact that you'll notice in the recommendations that one of the things that we're trying to do is recommend specific places. That's our recommendation, is like look and target specific places that you want to have more vending for two reasons. Because number one, I included links. I'm not sure if anybody would want to read the very long links that were included there, but in general, the evidence that is out there shows that vending does not actually compete with bricks and mortar. If anything, it supports bricks and mortar. So, however, that's not necessarily what people believe. And so we're also thinking about the fact that if you, for example, Bridgewater has conditions around not vending within something that provides the same sort of services within 50 meters, as an example. You'll notice that our recommendation is more around not even necessarily permitting vending in the business core of Pleasant Queen area, but moving that to around where Parade Square is, or the waterfront, or Lordley Park, which is away from businesses to avoid the competition and to try to build up the vibrancy in those areas. So,
And the parking space too.
Sorry.
Yeah, on.
Yeah, I think that this, as you said, Alan and Tina, that this is more of a Village of Chester concern. I don't see it in the outlying areas at all, really, because most of those areas are underserved. So they're happy to have anybody if it's in the back of the truck. And I like that we license currently. I think it's good. I think that we should put more stringent controls on the dates and maybe the time of day. And those time of days should be, I think, what it is that they're vending should affect what time of day we would permit it. So, like, not everybody's selling food. Some of them are selling t-shirts. You don't want to do that at midnight outside the Legion, it probably won't work out. So, I guess, I think that we should continue to do this. I think we should regulate it. I don't like that we currently just put it in the commercial zone. I think it has to have its own overlay, and it should be some sort of open vending zone overlay, and then we should decide where that is. And then that gives us the freedom to move that around if we have to. if it's creating conflicts. That would be my suggestion.
Derek?
Just on your report, I go back to the original report, I haven't had a chance to read your
It's all right.
updated one.
Yep.
You mentioned Bridgewater, Wolfville, West Hants, Yarmouth. Is there one particular one in that grouping that you thought would fit our municipality?
So what, to be completely...
At least as a base to start from.
As a base to start, the one that I would consider the best in general is the town of Bridgewater. However, it's obviously very much focused on a larger town, and they have been much more restrictive maybe than some other locations might be, and the municipality such as ours that is more rural and would like to look at. However, we are trying to focus on the village area, which is more similar. So their bylaw has a lot of great starting points, like the open spaces. They only allow it within areas of King Street and around their parks. That's where they restrict their vending. However, what we've, in our recommendations, which I know you haven't had a chance to read, but that's the major change to the two documents, just so you know. But basically what we've done is we've taken a bit of an approach from each of them, but Bridgewater would be the one that I would say has, in my opinion, the best starting point.
Did you make any adjustments to the original report where you're talking about us acquiring it? We were talking about where streets we would allow them on.
Yeah.
In the village, the streets that we are looking to acquire are not for streets. They're basically for open access to the water for the residents. So
Yes.
I think maybe a bit of misuse of what we're looking at those. They are on open public roads now. But they'll probably have a different designation if we get to acquire them, may even be parkland or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I just want to sort of take that out of the mix, that they're going to be streets once we get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason that was included, just so everybody is aware, is because as of right now, they are public streets. And so we were just suggesting, let's not forget that we might want to activate those spaces if they were to be acquired. So if they were redesignated parks, we could look at them that way.
I don't know that I'm wanting to encourage, as it said on page 3 of the initial report, or incentivize temporary vending. I don't think that's what this is about in my view. Just as a comment. To Deputy Warden Chatter's point, I think maybe the difference a little bit with the Hubbard's fish and chip wagon, even though it's up in the line, I believe the vendor is actually renting that property and is paying rent, presumably, and the person is using that rent money to pay their taxes. Whereas if you just sort of come and park on the street, you're paying nothing. It's a little different scenario. But
I think they own the property, but I'm not sure.
yeah.
I'm not sure of that, but it was just an example of.
I get your point. I know what you're saying.
There's an
I
open
just,
thing. I think there's a place for them. I definitely do. They have at the barn, but I think there should be food events, things like that, rather than someone moving a fish and chip wagon in next to a restaurant. I don't think it's a good thing. I think it needs to be located in the right spot, like a example of one Bayswater Beach. That's for anybody. They're there all summer. It's a great thing for the community. But I think there needs to be some regulation to protect the people that do run a business and pay taxes year round and suffer a bit in the winter, and summer comes and maybe it affects their business. I think we need to consider that.
yeah.
And I know that the race week, I mean, they bring people in, and that makes sense, you know.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Could I clarify one thing? Is that okay? We are also recommending, right now, in the existing bylaw, just so everybody knows, there are fees for people who are non-resident, but no fees for somebody who's a resident of the municipality. We are suggesting that there be flat fees for anybody who is vending, no matter what, but we're not recommending that those fees obviously match what they would pay in taxes for owning property, but we want, because it's a lower barrier of entry, it's a starting point, we need to consider some of those things, but we want to make sure that everybody is paying a fee for doing this.
Della?
Yeah, Brian, I just wanted to, if you're looking, I'm sorry, Gary.
No, I'll come back.
I just wanted to know, because, if you're looking to update the bylaw, we don't know exactly what's going to go on with the war, but I anticipate we're probably headed in some way. So I think, that should be included as is one of the spots, I would think. I mean, I don't know how you could do that in the bylaw right now, but, because we don't own it, obviously, but I don't know if it can be, you can revisit it, I guess, and amend it to include that area, but I think that from what Dalhousie did the other day here was pretty impressive to me.
And just to, I think, Mike here, I believe that area is zoned waterfront in the new plan, down by Tampa Ferry Wharf.
No, it'll be parks and open space,
Parks and open space,
the
okay.
municipal piece there, and then the wharf itself doesn't really have a
That's
zone.
That's okay.
Okay, yes, sorry.
You're correct in that I did not get a chance to read your evidence.
It's fine. It was a lot.
It was a lot. I'm skeptical. Okay? And I'll try to read the executive summary of it if I get the chance. But I can't imagine that mobile vending has a net positive impact on brick and mortar restaurants. Can't imagine. That looking at a mobile vending machine on Pleasant Street is going to increase the Kiwis' business. Don't see it. Anyway, I'm sure the evidence is there. I'm not sure which country it's in or what. But, I'll be interested to read it.
Sure.
I just want to take a shot at it.
Yeah, absolutely should.
Tara wants to ask you a question.
Yeah.
I just want to know if you're clear on direction in terms of.
I'm 90% clear on direction, but I can summarize if would that be helpful?
Yeah, okay, tell us what you think you heard.
Sorry.
Can I make one more question? I'm not finished. I read the whole report. I got some. Page 5 of my copy.
Yeah.
Stakeholder outreach, which I agree is incredibly important. But you talk about with underrepresented groups would begin immediately.
Yes.
I'm not sure what you mean by underrepresented groups.
I changed the language on that afterwards to call them equity-seeking groups.
I know you made a change in wording.
Exactly.
Do they mean the same thing?
They mean the same thing, yes.
Explain what it means.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the comments about that is the fact that we are, one of the things that we've been tasked with under our strategic priorities is around being a welcoming location for newcomers, as an example. And many people who come to the area from other countries, street vending, any type of vending is an incredibly common thing to do. Licenses aren't even required. They vend on the streets. And on top of things, we are trying to encourage people who come here. For example, if we get a new doctor that comes to the region, we really want their family to be able to participate in the economy as well. But sometimes their registrations aren't necessarily recognized, and so it may take a little time for them to be able to find employment. Whereas vending can provide an opportunity for people to get kick-started quite quickly, whereas they might need to wait longer for some other things. So what we wanted to do is, when we're talking about vending in the municipality, but specifically within the village, have some conversations with those groups to see how we could perhaps draft the bylaw in a way that allows and permits and encourages those types of activities that they might be more used to doing from the countries that they're coming from to help create a welcoming space for people and also provide them the opportunity to participate in the economy quicker. So we wanted to target that group for some outreach as well.
Questioning timing, and I want to run this by Gar. I don't want to get this confused. We've done
Absolutely.
so much public consultation. Right, a week before we have the public meeting for our big plan thing. I don't want to have, we're having public consultations out there. That's all people are going to see. Public consultations on that may or may not be over. We haven't made that decision yet. But let's not put this on the same week as we're having our public session week.
Yeah.
Cognizant of the timing. I don't know what your timing is yet. Hopefully we'll find that out next week. But I'm really concerned that we get these.
Oh, yeah, we don't want this to play into the land use policy. It's complicated.
And just one last comment. On page, I don't agree, and I won't get into the comments now. Priority outcomes, healthy and vibrant community. I don't think any of those three apply to what we're doing. I'll leave it at that. We can have a discussion on that if we need.
Okay. Yeah.
That's all.
Just for clarification, I think in the new version of the report, we're not proposing public
Correct.
meetings, public consultation. We're proposing consultation through other means, voices and choices, social media,
And
direct targeted engagement, so it's not.
What I'm looking at is with a survey 3 to 4 weeks in advance of the public meetings. I don't want a survey to go out while we're in the middle of this.
While we're in the middle of this.
Yeah.
Like that.
So-
We'll aim
So that
in
is,
advance of the public meeting. So you've taken that out of the second report?
we have taken that out of the second report.
Sure you got in the second report last night?
Okay, so what did you hear?
So what I'm hearing is, and I'm going to try to summarize it all, but correct me when I say that it's wrong. So we want to focus, like we said, on the Village of Chester planning area because it has specific requirements. However, through the conversation, it sounds like it would probably make sense to update the bylaw in its entirety to at least put some conditions
still
in
want to
the
pay the fee
existing
for the license.
so that we can do the fees. So it would be to draft or to either update or repeal or whatever it is. We'll come back with the decisions on that, but the existing bylaw, update it, but only create these new special things that we have talked about conditions-wise specific to the Village of Chester planning area.
For now.
For now.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
Sound good?
So I just have one question, right? So when you do consultation with the public, I would, I mean, sure it affects the public, but the most affected are the business owners. Those are the people that I would be slanted to ask more in-depth questions. I mean, the public, you know, some would say, you want a food, oh, absolutely, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't, you know, it's not my business. But if I was in business, I'd want to know the ramifications. And I think as a previous business owner, if someone was setting someone up next door to me and we're not on the same level playing field, cost-wise, it would upset me, absolutely.
And just to clarify that so that's the change that happened between the first and the second document. For the exact reason that you just said. So
Okay.
we're going to be making sure that the engagement is with community partners, the stakeholders are crucial. We are going to have voices and choices in social media to get a survey back from the public, but we would not be hosting public meetings. We would just be going directly, we want to focus on
Yeah, thanks.
So, in terms of the survey, is there any way, depending on the length of the survey, I guess, is there any way to incorporate it within our municipal newsletter? I don't know the length of the
I
survey.
would defer to Jen, but it depends on the timing is what I would guess.
You
Yeah.
have today.
So the answer is no.
Okay, so we have today.
You didn't ask me for writing anything yet.
You have today. You have that longer.
So we have today for the next newsletter, but our newsletter comes out 6 times a year.
Yeah.
Right? So how quick are we, what's the timeline on this? Would
So
it not meet the next newsletter?
next newsletter, and again,
Yeah, July, August.
Yeah, so is it too late to, like, I have to go in here and say, see, when you're looking at going out to New Ross and Hubbard's and Chester, Western Shore, what's the time frame on voices and choices? But to me, 2 months out is not that far to
yeah.
get in the next newsletter.
So, and I think you probably have the old version
I
up
think
as
I
well.
do.
Yeah, because that was for public meetings to go to all those
Yeah.
locations. So now we're going to just be focusing on the business
Cool.
community.
Excellent.
And our timeline, which could shift because of the conversation that we just had around the village plan and things like that. But we had targeted having the engagement wrapped up by the end of June.
Okay.
So if it didn't match up with the timeline with the newsletter, we would do it. But if it gets pushed and we still have time, we could absolutely consider it.
I understand.
Yeah.
So it depends on a variety of things, when we get rid of the
got
plan,
it.
when we finish our planning document, and all that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
Nice job.
What grade did you give your father? Good answer.
Just say nothing.
Give it to me.
J-Class Road. Well, that means it's what they approved, that's all we did.
Good morning, Council. Thank you for your kind attention. So as a result of our submission of 10 J-Class roads to the province in October 2023, earlier this month we received notification from the province that they have selected one road that they're willing to cost share with us. That's Forest Village Road. Total cost estimate is 215,000. Obviously, that means that the municipal cost share will be 107,500. And what we're looking for is direction to either accept this agreement with the province or to respond to them saying that we don't accept it and we will not be participating in construction this year.
It's,
Well, we've always participated, so.
it's the one they approved, and it's this one now.
Unless you want to make a motion, Andre, is it your district, sir?
That was not.
Oh, Floyd, sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to approve option A, of course.
I'll second his motion.
Discussion.
Oh, I have some words.
And I knew you would.
Okay. It's time we call out this sham. This whole process is absurd. And it's blatantly apparent. So we every year, okay, we know, we've discussed it at length at this table, J-class roads in this province, which are the property of the province, are chronically underfunded. $1 million for all of the roads. We have like 60 something or something like that, just us.
Yeah.
And there are 49 other municipalities, and they all have a whole whack of them. And, probably at least half of ours need work. And so we've got all these terrible roads, and we have to somehow try to make a list of 10, and even that's difficult. 10. Because
So that's the biggest sham of all, make us do 10 when they know they're gonna give us 0 to 1.
well, and then this idea of choice. So residents advocate to us, and our provincial representatives suggest that we need to get their roads on the list so that they can be considered. And then we give the residents false hope that their road is going to be selected. But it's not, and they're not choosing based on need. They're not assessing and say, that's the worst road, we definitely have to, because that's not what their budget allows. Before this year's selection, which I think if you look at the road, why was this one chosen? It wasn't number 1. It wasn't even number 2. Why was it chosen? Because it was the cheapest road. The last few years, the average length of an approved road was 366 meters. The average length of roads that were rejected was 698 meters. Well, that's an interesting statistic, isn't it? Why do you think that is?
Cheap.
It's not about need. So if you live on an expensive road, forget about it. Glenn Vino came to this council 7 or 8 months ago, and he literally died waiting for his road to get done. And if we are going to continue this on, it's absurd. I can go to everybody in that subdivision road and tell them the rest of you are going to die before you see this road done, because your road's too long.
And they won't let us cut it in half.
Well, and we can't even segment it. We can't even segment it and do a portion of it. So I want this council to write back. I want them to say, fine, yeah, we'll accept this. Great, thank you for doing this road that's short and inexpensive, just like the ones before it. But this is absurd, this process, because if we gave them a list of 10 long roads, we'd get 0. They would give them to somebody else, because they're not interested in what the need is. They're interested in putting a list of roads on their website that say, look at all the J-class roads we did, but they're only as long as somebody's driveway. Nobody knows that, they're just a list to most people. It's absurd, and we need to call it out, what it is.
And I think what will happen, Andre, is they'll say, well, you guys do have a choice as a municipality, which is wrong on their part. But what the exchange agreement would say, well, yes, we'll do the road, we'll do Chester Downs Road, but guess what? It's your road after that. They know that, and they know that, and that's their argument to us.
That's why they are.
That's
That was rejected.
Yeah.
And the J-class roads were taken out of this exchange agreement. I can tell from your body language, Alan, you're ready to move on. But I want to say, we need to speak up. Well, sure, well, thank you. Thank you, here's our $100,000, when you can put in your 10 and you can go in and get 9 other little tiny roads that barely need help. And you can have a list on your website, good. But if anybody has on a long road, you know, we're onto your scheme here. We need to tell them, jig's up.
Well, I don't understand, it says that Forest Village Road is 848 meters, and the one you're talking, Stevens Road, is 400. So
Because most of the road's in good shape. They're just gonna cut out the few potholes and fix those. They're not gonna resurface that whole road.
I can answer some of that, Don, there's right to that part, no ditching needs to be done, no culverts need to be done, it just has to be resurfaced, that's the reason that we've discussed this for the last couple of years so much, I'm tired of talking about it, to be quite honest, and my road protect, I'm glad for people that live there, you're right, Andre. But I don't think we're attacking it right, I think we should be lobbying this at the Nova Scotia Federation when we go there, we should be lobbying them to, on our behalf to get that $1 million raised to 10 or 20 or 30 million, and our MLAs, that's how we're gonna get something done, not by sitting here, I guess, talking to no one, because no one's listening here except ourselves, we all heard it. We need to talk to someone who maybe will listen, and maybe will act on our behalf. Maybe we need to write a letter to the province, to the MLAs, and also to the SCM, and get something done, get people working on it, it's a core, and get something done, someone working on our behalf, because we can't do it here. We have so much, they pick the road, and if you look back at the minutes, we had that discussion, and we said, they will pick whatever road they choose. I had that here on my phone where we made those statements. At that meeting where we put this list in, they will pick what they want, not what we think is the best road or the worst road or anything else. They'll pick what they want, and they've done that.
Because they own it.
So I think we need to step up our game and try to get more people working on our behalf to get that funding higher, much, much higher. That's my view.
Okay, so are we in favor of doing it or not? Because the other issue is we don't agree with the process, we don't agree with the amount of money.
I think that was the motion.
Yeah, the motion is to approve this or not.
We had a seconder, correct?
We have a seconder, yeah. Discussion, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried.
Well, what are we doing? Are we gonna signal back to these people, or are we just gonna drop it? Or what are we gonna do? Sit under this
Well, I
desk?
don't know, it's been suggested that we have the discussion at the NSFM. It's been it's suggested that we write a letter telling them that there needs to be more money in the pot. I mean, I know why they pick it. They have $1 million to spend all across Nova Scotia. Yeah, that's it. Yes.
Suggestion would be the executive director of NSFM had originally scheduled a meeting with us last Thursday when she goes around the province to meet with each of the municipal units.
Bring it to her attention.
Exactly, so I think that maybe we should certainly highlight, elevate, advocate, ask her in terms of bringing it to the board table in one voice. One voice of all the municipal units.
It takes a lot more than just us if we want to make any progress.
I mean, we could submit only one instead of 10. See what that helps.
Yeah.
Well, I was suggesting, well, reading my.
How we get to that one, I would never know.
Well, firstly, we gotta change our criteria.
I'd like to gladiator back.
We already did that.
Yeah, and our criteria is not working. I mean,
I go back to my original suggestion, and I still think it's the best suggestion.
yeah, but I also, like what Floyd is saying, one, maximum 3. I mean, 10. I mean, when they approve the average of 1/2 in a year going forward, we do 10. It's crazy.
Tina's next.
I have a suggestion in terms of how arriving at the one. Every district has J-class roads except for one.
Yes.
And that,
I have one.
And that one district would be the deciding factor.
Yes.
Whose district?
We could draw straws.
Well, and that was my suggestion, and 2 years ago. We know the roads in our district, and I'm working on the premise of picking 10, okay? Having said that, each councillor knows their district.
Yeah.
They can pick, and if I pick 2 roads to go on that list, as a representative for the area, I'd be very comfortable if someone came to me and said, oh boy, how come that you picked that road? And I would be comfortable saying, this is why. And you could do the same, you could do the same, and Tina could, because you know what, we've changed the criteria 6 million times, it's not worked.
Twice.
Twice, it's not worked. You see, we need to change it, we have it work.
Anyway, there's not enough money to fix them all. So that's the big issue. So simply it has to be done.
Well, I know that, but what I guess, I don't want to participate in this scam anymore. This is a scam, this list. We're scamming people. Well, all we're doing is, we already know what the answer's gonna be before we put it in, the cheap one.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, on behalf of my district, we did very well by this program.
Yeah, because you had a couple of short roads that like this building.
Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah, and every once in a while they make an exception to spend
And
more
that
money.
year they
than what's
made
in
an
the budget.
exception. No, we have 2 roads up either end of North Street's a pretty good sized road.
You got more than your share.
I think we did well. Yeah,
Good,
that's
right, you're cut out for the next 3.
Anyway, let's start with bringing, when is she coming to visit us next?
She hasn't followed up again, I can follow up, and I can add this to the list
Of
of
things that we
items
wanted
to
to
discuss
Put
with
it at the top of the list.
the executive director,
Yeah. And take it from there.
and then take it from
Then,
there.
when you're at when we're at the conference, bring it up.
But just one thing that Andre said, it's not based on need, and not based on the worst road. Our criteria is not based on need or the worst road, and we have to change our criteria at the same time.
Well, we sent it in based on the criteria we established, that's all I can tell you.
Yeah.
So if we want to change it, we gotta change it again.
Yeah, we gotta go back. Well, actually, I think when we actually submitted these numbers, we threw the criteria out the window.
Yeah.
We did not go by the criteria. if you
No, but
remember.
we made him go out and evaluate the roads based on several criteria.
When we had-
We didn't use them.
I didn't want to speak to this again, but I just want to ask a question. If whatever we change, I think, you and Andre will agree, 1 and 2 on our list are the worst roads. I think you,
No.
you know. I think Andre wants Stevens Road, I heard him complain about it now for 5 years.
Yes, that is the worst road.
Okay, so it's not one on the list.
I would have put number 6 before number 2.
But it's number 1 on the list, my point here.
I agree, but the
And they
one,
didn't do it.
No.
number 2 on the list is not near the worst road.
Okay, but if we change the criteria, what's it gonna do to us? We already got the worst one at the top of the list,
And they ignore that.
and they ignored it. So if we don't change the criteria, it doesn't do nothing. We have to change the process. I agree with you, Andre.
The process and the amount of money that's
We have to
available.
how much money we get. We have to.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with our ranking.
No.
This is decided by a guy that works in Halifax somewhere. I don't know if he came down and looked at the Stevens Road, he would have had to bring a lunar rover to get up there, it's a moonscape. But,
It's embarrassing.
yeah, but I'm guessing he didn't go.
I don't think he did either. I drove every one of those top 4 roads. I went and drove them myself. And Forest Village is the best one of them all.
But that's one.
You're right.
So are we saying that we don't, so for next year, if none of this is resolved from the government giving us more money, we're just gonna step aside this program?
No, you're not.
No.
Is that what you're saying on?
Might as well get something.
No, but I'm saying, like, just sitting here complacently, just saying, thank you for the money, thank you, ma'am, may I take another, or whatever.
I don't think we're complacent about it.
But I mean, we have to, like, yeah, thanks, we'll take the money, we'll fix the one road that doesn't barely need it, but, you know, we have to complain.
Oh,
This process is absurd. The other people that are on this list, they all were hoping that they're gonna get good news. Well,
Andre, you speak on this subject well. I'm serious. You're passionate about it, so when we go to the spring conference.
because they're throwing pieces of road at my
Get
truck.
up and say this.
Well, I might have anything to do with
Get up and
that.
talk.
It's not taking.
You know, you're talking to us.
That might be another.
Get up at the spring conference. I'll stand up alongside you. Maybe our whole council will stand by you. Get up and say your speech, and we'll stand by it. Just doing nothing. Talking to me is doing nothing, or talking to the other.
The absurdity of all this is they already know. It's like, we're gonna go and we'll lobby Anna, or UNSFM, what is it called
So
now?
what do you want to do?
We'll storm the legislature.
When?
Okay, we're gonna move on, people. So this is what's gonna happen now. We're gonna do the grants budget, and then we're taking a break, because once we move into the real budget, that's gonna take a while.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I can move my item to next week.
council, just to.
Okay. Let's do the grants one first.
Oh, God.
No, I know, I'd rather have a break now, but it's never that.
All stands on what stands are there
Yeah, that's, no.
Okay, so we'll go from one exciting topic to the next one. Grants, favorite topic.
Yeah, really.
So this is a continuation. We've had a few different conversations around our grants budget for this year, and I think we're making progress, and hopefully after today we'll make a little bit more progress.
I'm not sure.
So, last week we had a discussion about our budgeted grants, and we provided the list and provide consideration to two new groups, the Chester Playhouse and the New Ross Trail Society. Council provided direction on the amounts for those two groups, and so on page 1 we have our draft list of budgeted grants for the upcoming year, and you have that total there of $159,690. So that's kind of our starting point. Then on the next page, we provided you with an overview of your entire grants program. So you'll see there the list of all the grants that we provide. You'll see in that list includes the budgeted grants. That $159,690 is in there, along with all the other amounts that we had. And these are from last year, and so that's our starting point for where we're going for the current year. And so you can see all of those are listed. So a couple of points just to mention in there. Now, so we've already reviewed our capital grants, and you've come up with a budget of $75,000 for that, and we've kind of provided that tentative list, and so that number isn't really relevant for the conversation today because that comes from our wind reserve, so that has no impact on the tax rate. The designated community fund as well, I just put 0 in there. We know there's going to be designated community funds this year, but again, I didn't want you to forget about that. We're going to be doing it, but again, it has no impact on the tax rate. So that takes us to the next portion of this. So the request from last week was, with those two new groups that we added $35,000 to the grants budget. The request from council was where else within our grants program could we reduce by $35,000 so that we're not increasing any of the budget any further this year. So I put together a few options as you've requested, and then we'll open the floor to discussion. So the most obvious one right off the bat, so our largest grant program in there for consideration would be our district grant. So it's $70,000. So we could have simply cut that in half. That would provide $5,000 per district for the upcoming year, and that would make up your $35,000. So that's option 1. Option 2 is to do a combination of perhaps the operating grants and the district grant. So our operating grant deadline is coming up soon. It's April the 30th. And just a reminder for folks that the maximum amount that group's can apply for within that is $3,000. So the more that we reduce that, the more challenges that we're going to have once those applications come in as to the amount that we have to give out. So that's just a hard fact. We know that we always are oversubscribed. There's more applications than we have budget. That just makes that decision making a little bit harder at that point. So the suggestion there is to reduce the operating grants by $7,000 and to reduce the district grants to $6,000 per group. So that gives you that next option. So again, that would reduce it by the $35,000 that you're looking for. The third option is to go one step further and to actually take a little bit, spread that around a little bit and take some off the recreation grants budget. And just a note in there, so last year we actually increased the recreation grants budget by $5,000. So it would be a little bit unusual the next year to reduce it, but we absolutely could do that. So I just put that on there as another option. So I didn't suggest that we get into some of the other grants that are listed there. They're pretty small. The youth sponsorship, the economic development sponsorship, they're small amounts. So I didn't recommend that we reduce those because they're already pretty insignificant to start with. And lastly, just wanted to remind folks, in case you forgot, that last year we reduced our budget already for the upcoming year through the fact that we stopped providing that $5,000 grant to our 3 resource centers. And so that $15,000, we've already reduced the budget from last year by that $15,000. So you might want to consider that as part of the overall reduction of the budget this year. If you do that, then essentially that would be another $20,000 that you would look at, some combination of those 3 options that I just provided. So that's just a point of consideration. So essentially have kind of keep the budget as it is and increase it by that $35,000, or have the discussion.
Well,
around
I just find, I'm not in favor of reducing the district grant, but I just find it ironic that it's in every option.
No, I'm not in favor of reducing district grants. My
I'm not.
community doesn't even apply for anything other than.
I've got groups in my community that, you know, I've got 4 groups in my community that,
And so the reason that it was essentially in each option, because you're asking to reduce by 35,000.
We
Substantially, we only have those,
Yeah,
we really only have those
absolutely.
3 areas to
I understand.
reduce, so it's
Yeah.
either kind of keep some where they're at now, and kind of, because you've made the decision to increase the budget of grants by that 35,000. If we don't want to touch those, then we would simply need to increase the grants budget for this year.
Well, I'm not in favor of taking the district grants out, but most of the organizations in my community that I do support with that money aren't even eligible because of the nature of their, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but they're still doing good community work, so.
So essentially what we need to do is on that page 2, where we have the budget from last year, we have the new budgeted grants number is in there. The capital grants number is in there, and all the ones from last year. So that's our starting point. And so I'm basically just looking for direction of what you want those numbers to look like.
So I'm actually in favor of reducing the district council grant. So just to put that as a placeholder on the table in terms of our debate back and forth. Well, maybe I'm okay with reducing it by half, taking it completely from the district council fund, and I'm in favor of, option B or C or whatever they were called as well. So I'm just putting that out there.
That's what we're here for.
I've never been crazy about these district grants. They're too political. You know, it's great. As a counselor, you can go and you can kind of cherry pick the ones that you think are the best, and, you know, maybe we're all virtuous and there's no, you know, it provides an opportunity to game the system a bit politically. And I don't like it. I'm not saying that anybody does that. I'm just saying that threat is there with this sort of setup, because although council approves a district grant, as a whole, pretty much when the councilor that's mayor, like wherever it comes from, whatever district it comes from, we pretty much agree. In the history of the district grant, I don't think anybody's ever said no.
Never said no.
So, having said that, so I guess if I, like Tina, if I had my druthers, I guess I'd probably just cut the district grant in half. It started at $2,500. Or sorry, 12.
There are 2 groups in here today that I have given district grants to my district for. One of them is that group right there,
Yes.
and the other one was that basketball guy.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list right now. I'm unaware of that.
Yeah, I guess, you know, anyways, having said all that, I could live with 2 or 3 easily. It wouldn't bother me at all, you know, cutting it down a little bit and spreading it over the other ones, that would be fine too. I guess I'd probably favor the option 3 if I couldn't have option 1. But Abdullah's doing calculations of snow, and I don't know what's going to happen now.
I'm in favor of the district grants. I think it's since I've been on council, it's been the most useful tool that I've had. It's not political. It's not. It's helping community, groups in my community. It's, with our other grants, they're very restrictive. They put in for $500, they get a problem 2 weeks later or 6 months later. They're done. They've got a grant. If there's no district grant, the district grant, they can reapply for different ones. We can serve about 8 or 9 different groups. If they miss the deadline, it's just a good tool for my community. Instead of sitting there battling and fighting with everyone around this table over the $3,300 we have, it gives me as a councillor the opportunity to help different organizations in my community. I love it, and I would never vote against having the $10,000 as a district grant. I just think it's a great tool, and I'm not in favor of changing it.
Okay.
There's head was smoke in there, so.
So now I'm just throwing this out there. This is my suggestion for the capital, where am I? Capital or major grants, okay? Is 60,000.
No, 75,000.
That's coming out of wind revenue. That's coming out of
Okay, sorry.
reserves, so that's not affected.
So the 75,000 doesn't have any bearing.
That's right.
Okay.
Money.
It's money, but, yeah, okay, yeah, it's money regardless if it comes from the taxpayer.
But
It's still,
we could still reduce it and change our
Yeah.
minds and use some of that wind reserve to fund the.
okay, so, yeah, that's, okay, so using that, regardless if it's wind reserve, suggesting 60,000 into that. And the operating grant, reduce it to 28,000. The art center, from 25 to 20.
What?
I'm just trying to think outside of the box here. As you know, you're not in favor of the district grant, obviously. And in my view, we put the art center last year, and I think it's a good project, but I mean, I'm sure they appreciate 20,000 as opposed to nothing. I'm just trying to get a compromise here.
I don't like this.
Okay.
We don't
So, I'm just trying to find $35,000 somewhere.
do a good job, Bill, I like it.
Well, so I'll leave it at that, and then we can move on. I had some other things there, but Derek, you go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I disagree.
I know you did.
Yeah, so just in case you think something.
Yes.
I agree. The other option we have, of course, is just increasing it by the 35.
Well, that is, but we just wanted them to look at it, not,
And I don't see a compromise here.
neither do I, quite frankly, at this moment in time.
I mean, I would reduce the district grant, but I understand its use, and I'm not prepared to die on that sword.
I'll take my shot here. That, going back, first of all, it was a council motion to put the art center on the budgeted grant. I think that to get them off, you need two-thirds.
Yeah.
That's a hill I'm gonna die on, just so you know.
But I don't think that's getting them off.
No, I didn't.
That's two different gestures.
No, the motion was to put them on, and you're correct, in order to rescind that motion, requires two-thirds vote.
Yeah, so get ready.
Yeah. No, so I don't think that's it, I think,
Dead to water.
I would just assume, leave it alone. And we'll have to find the money, operating budget, so it's coming.
So something else just to keep in mind, just thinking of the larger picture, is with last year's overall grants budget, we did have an additional $60,000 in there for Turf Memorial Park. That's not in here. Plus that additional $15,000 from the resource center. So if you take that into consideration, that's $75,000 that we have already removed from last year. So that's just a little, another
It is a
little piece of the
reduction in grants.
Although I have no doubt in my mind that they will be coming in.
We may have to, at some point in time, take a look at how we spend the wind reserve money.
That's where I was.
Perhaps
Yeah.
we throw some of that into the pot for other things other than the major capital.
I think
I'd
so.
say for this year, just leave it alone, unless people want to sit there and argue about things.
How much is coming from the wind reserve, the wind money?
75,000. That's what
we're spending.
council decided this
No,
year.
we have a
What's the
reserve.
revenue stream?
Around 250,000, something like that,
It's a little bit higher
a
than
little bit higher,
And how much is in that fund right now?
couple million.
So for the one-third community development that we use for capital, it's at about $1 million.
Yeah, it's split in three separate pots, so there's 3 million.
So I think, yeah, that's worth looking at, take it from the wind revenue.
Next year, we're gonna, at some point, we just.
Well, we could increase
Certainly, wind revenue
from the beginning has been designated 1/3 reserves,
Yeah,
1/3 economic development,
and
and
one,
1/3 community development.
yeah,
And the one year that we looked at major project, and we wanted to up the amounts that we were approving for certain projects, we dipped into our economic development fund because they were economic development projects. I think maybe like the International World Sailing, maybe Howard's, I'm trying to think of some examples. Bonnie Lee, I think with their project, we might have dipped into economic development, I don't know, I can't remember, but there's a couple that we did, so we do it. We do it.
I mean, we might want to consider that the district grants are community development and use some portion of it for that. Yeah, you know, but right now, we don't,
Yeah.
whatever. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it alone. Okay, we're taking a 10-minute break, because I need one.
We're gonna start before the